Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. This will be very short and quick so that we can get on with our daily activities. Today is a Monday. Thanks for joining. I can see some participants in the room already. All right. So today we are going to be looking at project financing and environmental and social compliances. Richflood came up with this webinar because it was necessary and because most of our clients have demanded it, and it's expedient that we start to talk to our clients on a regular basis on this matter, because most projects do not fail for lack of funding. No, they fail essentially because they are not ready for funding when it comes to ENS. And ENS in this meeting will be environmental and social framework compliances. So across different sectors that we serve at Richflood, which could include infrastructure, energy, mining, agriculture, manufacturing, most projects struggle to access financing because they lack the capacity or the consciousness or the awareness to know that environmental and social compliance is a very key component for major funders across the world today. And it is not because funding is not available, but because they are poorly positioned or they are not properly positioned to meet the requirement for investors and for lenders that they are looking to attract. By way of introduction, my name is Comfort Asokoro Ogaji from Richflood, as you can see. And today, essentially, we'll be discussing how your organization can better position your projects to access financing, particularly by meeting the environmental and social requirements that banks and investors now consider as a very critical component for any project that they will be funding, most especially in Africa. So next slide, please. In the next 10 minutes in summary, we'll be looking through what project financing means, why ENS is not a requirement anymore. I mean, it's now a requirement and not optional anymore, and what banks are specifically looking for, the common gaps that we have observed so far at Richflood across different projects, and how you can position your projects properly. So the goal is very simple, is to help you move from trying to get funding to actually being funding ready or ready for funding, so to speak, because most projects, again, are underfunded because they are underprepared for funding. Next slide. Project financing is, next slide, please. Essentially, project financing is funding provided based on the viability of a specific project, and not just because, yeah, this is my company. No, it is because you are viable for funding. That is why you can access funding. And that is the bedrock by which we can define project financing. It is common in most sectors, infrastructure, energy, all over, from DFIs trying to fund projects in Africa and other commercial banks trying also to fund different sectorial projects across the continent and also in Nigeria most especially. And what this means is that banks are not only looking at your business, they are checking the risk of releasing funds for that project. I have been in a meeting where the Germans were telling me, Dr. Comfort, we just want to know what the risks are. We know this is viable. We know this is a project we should fund, but without seeing clearly what the risks are, we are not inclined to move forward. So just focus on the risk aspect of this project. That is what they want to know. That is what they're looking for. the red flags for them to move away from the project. So the risks of your project is what they're looking at, and how well it is structured, and whether it meets environmental and social standards. ENS have shut down projects in many sensitive areas where it was ignored, and most funders are looking to see how to ensure that their projects don't run into such a risk, and recovering the funds in any way or measuring the impact in a positive way becomes a very difficult thing to attest to. So increasingly, ENS or ESG, if you like, have become the first line of filter that investors look at. So people often overlook ENS and say, no, it doesn't matter, but really it is now required by banks, development finance institutions, and even private investors. Private investors who's got less funding are even looking through now to ENS. We've gotten a lot of requests. Before, the commercial banks will not bother that much. It was more of a DeFi requirement, but now commercial banks are now looking at environmental and social due diligences for every project that they want to finance. So this is a requirement that must be met. And it is also because environmental and social compliance reduces the risk, and it ensures compliance with regulations, local and international. It ensures compliance with protection of the communities. When the communities are left out in project financing, that is a huge red flag. It's a huge red flag that cannot be overestimated in its red flagness, if there's a grammar like that. And also, ENS ensures long-term sustainability of the project. You can be rest assured when ENS is fully captured that the sustainability of the project is guaranteed. When it is ignored, then there is a problem. So without the compliance, the ENS compliance, most serious financing discussions actually do not move forward. So what are the key ESG standards? The key frameworks are embedded in global standards already that we know that is on the screen. And we have local laws as well. But most importantly, and at Richflood, we benchmark our ESG standards with the IFC performance standards, the Equator Principles, the World Bank ESF, and also the environmental ESF as well, the framework, environmental and social, African Development Bank Environmental and Social Framework. So these are not theoretical standards, they are actually being implemented. Checklists are being developed to tick that every standard framework is being complied with for most projects. These are what banks use to evaluate whether your project qualifies for funding or it doesn't qualify. So aligning with those standards is very, very essential. And what does bank look for? They look for information regarding environmental and social parameters of the project location. They want to know, is there an assessment that have been done about that project location? Is it an environmentally sensitive area? Is it a volatile community? Have there been conflict in that community? For instance, if you take a look at the Ogoniland, most projects that would be situated in Ogoniland in Nigeria, Niger Delta, will ask critical questions about the community. Are the community having ownership of this project? Are they in support of this project? Are they being sidelined on this project? Are they being consulted? Is the consultation documented in an environmental and social impact assessment? Is there a clear-cut biodiversity study that have been done amongst other in-depth expert studies that usually will be carried out in the course of an environmental and social impact assessment? So a functional environmental and social management plan, is it available? Is evidence of stakeholders' engagement clear? Have stakeholders been carried along on this project? Is there a compliance track record? Are the promoters of this project conscious about compliance, or they're neglecting it and just focusing on the economic aspect? That is no longer the case. So if there are missing or there are weak links in the parameters I have mentioned earlier, the project is automatically considered as a high risk. You may not be told, but most of the financing institutions, they have their experts who go through some of these projects. And I am one of those experts, and I tell you that most times when we go through these projects, we flag them red, because it's either we do a random check and the communities have no clue about the project, they were never consulted, and that becomes a very, very big gap. So on the next slide, you will see the common gaps that we have found when we are reviewing such projects. We see several projects without environmental and social impact assessment properly done. Some, they just document it as a text report that somebody needs to see, and that they just want to show that, yes, there's such a report, not professionally done. No specific expert studies conducted on site. Such is a red flag and will not move forward. You will see that such projects begin to go around the circle of reviews. They may not directly tell you, they will just give you a long report of why it is not funded, and embedded in it is E&S considerations. Or is either the report is poorly prepared or has weak implementation of the management plans. And talking of management plans, we have series of management plans. We have environmental management plan, we have air quality management plan, we have biodiversity management plan. We have different management plans depending on the sensitivity of the project. Even climate change mitigation plan is part of what the global funders look out for in today's funding space. All right, so sometimes there could be proper study done, or there could be proper documentation done. Proper environmental and social impact assessment done, but it essentially lacks documentation. You will find out that most of the project proponents will be trying to explain and be trying to say, oh yes, we have this, we got this, we have already engaged. And the simple question the financing body will ask you is, can we have the documents? When the documents are not there, it's same as you do not have any safeguards on that project. So these gaps are often the reason projects struggle to seek financing, not necessarily because the idea itself is bad or is not fundable, but because the risks are high and the safeguards to curtail those risks are often neglected. All right. So in many cases, how now do you position your project? Across board, we try to make it generic so that irrespective of your sector, it can also fit in. You need to start an environmental and social due diligence early in your project lifecycle. There is a whole long list of documentation, some of them desktop, some of them most of it on the field, permits, licenses that safeguards the project. So the starting point is to start early, commence early, commence to take E&S compliance very serious as early as possible during the project conceptualization. Most projects will already begin and they will approach us that they want to conduct an environmental and social impact assessment. It's done actually before the groundbreaking, before you commence construction works, before you clear the road. As the project site is a greenfield, that is when an ESIA commences. Not when the project is halfway gone. That is also an issue. So you will position your project wrongly when you don't consider these things early at the planning phase of your project. And sometimes how to also position your project all the time, not sometimes, pardon me, is that you have to effectively align it with international standards. We highly recommend that you don't look only at your state or local government or country standard to say that you're in compliance with environmental and social governance frameworks. You have to look at international standards, and they are not rocket science. They are easy to achieve just with the willingness and consistency of the project promoters. And then next to position your project is to maintain proper documentation. When you have meetings with stakeholders, when you have meetings with communities, when you have meetings with even the financiers themselves, these meetings ought to be documented. You need to have minutes of meetings. You need to have the objective of the meeting. What was arrived at? What grievances were raised during the meeting? How did you resolve the grievances? In a documented format. So when you maintain proper documentation, you are already gearing towards compliance of most international standard for E and S. And also, you have to engage professional advisory support. And that's where Richflood comes in. We provide this professional advisory support to project proponents to make them investment ready from inception, from the planning stage, from the feasibility study stage, because there could be alternatives that will reduce the risk, the E&S risk of your project. We detect this early at the project conception stage, and we're able to flag it and give you a preferable alternative or another direction that you could take that could make the project less risky for the funding partners. So how can Richflood support you in a broader sense? At Richflood, you can engage us to have your environmental and social due diligences done early, as I have said. You can also consider what management plans you need. When we review your project information, we are able to know what management plan is needed, what categorization of environmental and social assessment is needed. Actually, some project does not require an environmental and social impact assessment. How do you know? It is when you reach out and when we are able to review what your project is all about and what safeguards actually is required by that project in order to make it fundable. So ESIA and ESMP development and review, ESG compliance audits. Most times when these projects have kickstarted and the ESIAs are done and they're progressive, there is this audit that is still required to be done, which we call the environmental and social audit for the project. In other words, it could be ESG compliance audit as well. So depending on the category of your project, there is an array of studies to be done and policies to be developed and trainings to be executed for the project proponent and its staff. Series of training. Most times we request that you should appoint some staff on your team, some staff that could be the custodian of E&S standards in your organization so that we can train them as we go along in most of these due diligences that we run on specific projects that you have brought to us. So capacity building cannot be underestimated. Most of our clients do underestimate this, but this is what brings about the sustainability of your project long after the consultant is done with the assessment and is gone. Yes, sometimes we're on retainer with your organizations. Most of our clients were on retainer, but the capacity building of your staff remains at the center of the success of environmental and social standard compliances. When they know about it, when they are part of the implementation, when they are monitoring in-house, when they are documenting daily incidents or reports or framework, or monitoring results, when they are documenting that every day as it comes up, it makes the whole compliance assessment very easy for even Richflood as a consultant that is working with you. So We work with both project developers, we work with financial institutions to ensure that projects meet required standards for financing. It's not just our clients only. Sometimes the bank also will say, Richflood, come and take a look at this and conduct an ESDD on this project. And then we look through all of it from the internal governance framework of the client or of the project proponent to the community where the project is going to be situated, to the environment, to the extent of engagement, to the community risks that is flagged, to the environmental risks that is flagged, to the global environmental risks like climate change that could be part of the impacts that is being flagged for that project. So as a next step, we encourage you to review your current compliance status. You don't have to wait. You may not need funding today because you already got one, but you may eventually need funding to expand. So it's important that you always review your compliance status, identify the gaps in this review that you will be running in your organization, and plan for the updates, for the renewals, what licenses are due. You do not wait until the investor is asking for this document, and then we are all under pressure. Richflood is under pressure to deliver in 10 days, in 15 days, and you are under pressure because you have a time frame to deliver those documents. We do not wait for that to happen. So the time to start is now. If you intend in the future to expand your project, to commence a new project, or you are just conceptualizing another mega project anywhere in Africa, Richflood is there to assist in setting up what needs to be set up for you, what documents you need, specific to the project. All right. So thank you for your time. I don't know if we have anyone in the room have a question. This will be happening frequently, and we will try to change the topics and go deeper. This is an introductory aspect of ESMS compliance for funding, assessing funding. So we would go deeper. If I see any hands raised, then I will be calling on you to maybe make a comment or ask a question, and we can tackle it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. It's early in the morning. We promise to keep it short at 30 minutes as much as possible. It will be bi-weekly, so we would be sending you notification to continuously improve our skill, and your staff should also be made to attend this event. We may not be able to structure a training, which in fact you have to pay for if we are structuring a customized training for your organization, but this is free to attend training bi-weekly, and we're very happy to keep bringing you updates and keep sharpening the skill of your team in knowing what really global funding institutions are looking out for regarding your project. So I don't know if there are any comments or questions. I would now like to take the questions. We are also available after this session to discuss specific projects or supports that you may need, maybe customized. Unfortunately, we are not able to customize it per client, but if you're here, you have a generic question, we can look at it. But if it's more of a project specific, then we may have to schedule another time to be able to take them. If there are no questions, then we will shut down at this time. And
I think I raised my hand. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh, sorry, I'm not seeing it. You can speak now, Mr. Pascal.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Comfort, for the insights and the guide from your presentation.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to be clarified, the talking about the ES compliance for a particular project, especially when you are looking for funding. You did mention that there are some projects that do not need EIA, as the case may be. That's correct. But I know that our regulators, for example, the Federal Ministry of Environment and Federal Ministry of Environment particularly, have a guide on projects that need EIA and those that do not need EIA. It is in line with what you are talking about, or you are talking about something entirely different?
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Pascal. Is it Nigeria or which country are you
I'm in
from?
Nigeria, Port Harcourt.
Okay, great. So for Nigeria, yes, there is, you are right in your analysis. There is a regulatory framework that categorizes projects, category 1, category 2, category 3, and 4. And there are projects that do not require environmental and social impact assessment in full. Maybe because the project is a small scale project, or the project have no significant environmental impact, or the project is not necessarily situated in a location where you will need an ESIA. So what we do at Richflood is to do an initial appraisal of your project and see which category it falls into. So we use both local laws, which most times is at par with international law, on international standards on ENS. So we review both together, and we are able to advise you that this project only requires an ESMP, for instance, Environmental and Social Management Plan, or you only need a BMP, that is a Biodiversity Management Plan for this project, or you only need specific permits, air quality permit, biodiversity permit with the National Environmental and Regulatory Enforcement Agency, NESTRIA. We could say that is just what you need. So it depends on the scope of the project, the location of the project, and the depth of perceived impact that the project could have on both local and global environment. So yes, the environmental laws in Nigeria is just as you have put it. The categorization is even there. Projects under category 1 is in the regulation. Projects under category 2 is in the regulation, and so forth. Yeah. I don't know if I answered the question or I didn't get you.
No, yes. I think it's clear enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I see Oyewole and Adebisi Awolabi hand up. You can speak now.
Well, thank you, Dr. Oga. It's nice to hear you, and thank you for the invitation. I want to appreciate you. Great project and great initiative, and I'm glad that you're into all this, and that is really encouraging. I think it will really help to build capacity and help many companies that are thinking of projects to comply, and also increase the chances of being funded. I just thought I should appreciate your move and your effort. And of course, to say that I'm interested in this matter since we have been in this we have been in this business for a while. God bless you. Nice to hear you again. Cheers.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. That's encouraging. And we will do this more often. I have discussed with my team at Richflood that I think it is necessary, because most of my analysis with African Development Bank, where I review reports before they are funded, I see a lot of, even Nigeria as it is, we have a lot of brilliant people in Nigeria, you know, that compared to some other countries who are catching up. But I see that even Nigerian projects don't get to make it to the funding level. And that's why we said, look, let's have this webinar every week and build capacities of people and help businesses. Thank you for that commendation. We have 2 minutes to go, and I'll take Madam Janet.
Good morning, Doc.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to learn. My question is a quick one. When you're talking about common gaps, you mentioned no ESIA or outdated ESIA. So my question is on the outdated. I know that ESIA can serve as a reference document, And then when you mentioned outdated, I was thinking what can make an ESIA become outdated? And in a situation when it becomes outdated, what other studies can be done to replace it? Is it to conduct another ESIA, or there are other studies that can be done to replace it? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Janet. Let me take the last question. You don't conduct another ESIA. Actually, ESIA is done once in a lifetime of a project. What we do to update an ESIA regularly is compliance audits that we do, but the first layer is impact mitigation monitoring, what we generally call IMM. So IMM is what when you have already your ESIA completed according to the standard that is required. And in the case of Nigeria, because I see you're also a Nigerian, you have an ESIA certificate already issued. That does not stop there. After 3 years, you are supposed to revisit that document and update it based on what impacts were predicted earlier, if those impacts are happening now, and if they're happening, how are you managing those impacts? If they say you are going to take, maybe land take, you're going to take 100 hectares of land from the communities, and now the land have been taken. What about their livelihood? Have you worked on specific livelihood restoration plan for that community or for the landowners or even the land occupiers? They are not landowners, but they occupy the land. Did you restore their livelihood, or you just left them by themselves? So you need to look at the document. What did it say regarding that? And how have you implemented so far or neglected so far, high risk, or partially implemented, moderate risk? And what are the issues coming up based on this neglect? So that document need to be further reviewed so that you see how well you're doing. And that is done by an external consultant again. In most cases, Richflood now comes in to say, let's review your document and develop a compliance report or an environmental audit report, as they call it in Nigeria. In other countries, they call it ESMS compliance report. And let's see where we are. So another report is developed that now gives you a new guide based on the initial baseline. And what is a baseline? Baseline is the original condition of that environment before you came in. Now, as you have come in and things are ongoing, what is the status of that environment? That is the update that we need to do. Then I was talking about the impact mitigation monitoring earlier. We are now late. I know we all want to go back to our work. So the IMM is what we do before or during the construction phase, earlier than the environmental audit. So the ESIA have been done, the certification have been given, but now you are about to go to the field, and then you are cutting down the trees, you are leveling the floor, you are making roads to assess your land. All these activities are taking place. Then we come and do an impact mitigation monitoring. These are now stockpile of reports that you are presenting to your funder to show that you are compliant, you are updating all of your E&S record. Thank you very much, madam. So on this note, we will draw the curtain. We will try to keep it at 30 minutes. We'll see you again in 2 weeks' time, same time, early in the morning. And I look forward to hearing your questions. Maybe I'll limit the presentation to 10 minutes at that time. Thank you so much for joining, and have a very great week ahead. Cheers. Thank you. Olatunbosun, thank you. So we take other questions next week, please. Thank you so much. I'll save your question, Mr. Olatunbosun, for next week.